With Threads posing a risk to Twitter, the rise of copy artists, and the insufficient growth of our built environment, where do we really see ourselves living in the future? Let's start off with Threads. What is it, what does it do, and how is it going to benefit us moving forward? Well, basically, Threads is a copy version of Twitter. But now, all jokes aside, I'm really liking it. The platform is basically a text conversation-based social media platform that Instagram or Meta has developed, and I mean, they released it at the beginning of the week. Monday, I mean, what is the date now? It's Monday currently. Well, no, it's Saturday, 8th of July, so it would have been Monday the 3rd. Monday 3rd of July, they released it, and I'm really liking it. It kind of brings like a new fresh and a new face and a kind of a fresh approach to how we want to communicate with each other online. They're basically taking the followers that we've got on Instagram and directly, well, it depends on if the other person gets Threads and then they follow you or they whatever, but it kind of directly corresponds back to like the profile that you've got on Instagram. And you can just start messaging, you can start having conversations, you can start, Threads supposedly. But I mean, all of those things were already apparent in Twitter. It's just that Zucks is kind of having a dig at Elon, making this up and kind of spotting a weakness in Twitter as a company as a whole. And I thought that this was the best time to release it. But politics and all that stuff aside, what does it mean for artists? What does it mean for designers? And where do we go from here? So let me get into it. Well, for me personally, I think I started using Threads maybe on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. I'm not entirely 100% sure. But when it came out Monday, I think it was because it was like in America, like the time zone difference. Maybe if I started Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll get some of my threads up on the screen right now, but it's literally been a platform that I've been able to kind of brainstorm, take some notes down, and just kind of put my ideas out there. Because usually I would write something in my notes app and it would just sit there and I wouldn't be able to do anything with it other than like kind of a personal checklist or a personal notebook. But having Threads and already having the community that I've begun to kind of develop and have like relationships with other designers and creatives online, we're able to kind of express and share our ideas and actually work towards something or work towards multiple things that we either both have in common, or not just two people, but more than two people as a group that we have in common, or even like, how am I saying it? But it's even a space that we're able to support each other and actually give notes and pointers and like place ourselves and others in the right direction for how we want to go about doing things. So I really like it on that end, and I think the future of Threads, should it I'm hoping that it doesn't get taken off or like the lawsuit and things like that, but should it continue and should more opportunities arise for us as designers and artists to like kind of benefit from it, I think there's a huge scope for the amount of opportunities that are going to be coming our way. And one thing that I saw recently is kind of a post on Threads itself, ironically, it's someone put, use Threads as an unhinged creative space for everything that you want to do. So kind of having, not feeling guilty and not feeling kind of, not having your self-doubt to like stop you in the way of what you want to put out there. Because we kind of have those feelings when we want to tweet something, we're like, oh, like I haven't got that many followers, or haven't kind of got the community or the space that I want to be talking about all of these kind of exciting ideas that I have. But with Threads, you have the community, you decide what you want to do, and then because you're already in that space, you kind of have the feeling and a sense of relief that you can just express yourself how you want, talk about whatever you want. And I mean, people were joking and saying like, please don't move all of your TikTok stuff onto Threads, all your videos, but just do what you want. I think they've put a limit up to, you can't upload a video that's more than 5 minutes, and similar to Twitter, they have kind of this word count or the character limit that you can type and post and upload. But other than that, it's a really exciting space. I think for me personally, when I'm on the app and I'm going through it, the how do you say it? Is it the UI design, the user interface? Kind of the design of the app itself is just I think it's so clean, and it's kind of a nice refreshing update. It's very similar to the Instagram, I'll give you that, but I think it's like, because it looks like such a cleaner, such a nicer version of Twitter and like version of how you want the space of your community that you can be talking to be, I think that's what's kind of exciting me more, what's exciting other creators and designers that I talk to, and even talking to people that I see online, and I follow them on Instagram and they follow me back on Instagram, but we don't have any sort of kind of dialect going on. But as soon as Threads came about, I post something or they post something and we comment on each other's posts. Then a conversation starting. Then we're beginning to build these relationships. And that's one of the ways, this is kind of another catalyst of moving forward with our design work, if we're able to become more free in how we want to express ourselves as creators and designers, God knows the potential of what we can produce. However, the caveat that I'll put on that is we need to not just talk. We can talk and talk and talk. And talking has been going on for a very long time about the changes that we want to make, whether it's in our industries, whether it's in the world, or even in our local communities. But it's the work and the practice that we do that's going to have the greatest impact. So yes, let's have these conversations. Let's continue talking, but now let's back it up with the actions that we want to do as well. And this now leads me on to kind of the next section that I want to talk about in this video, which is copyist art. And I saw a video from, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, about artists who kind of their mission is to work to replicate the works of very, very famous painters, such as, and artists and sculptors such as Michelangelo, etc. But the work that they do is literally copying the art of something that already exists. Now, there's a huge argument. Forgery, plagiarism, what's going on with that? However, when we think about it, like from in a more pragmatic sense, learning to master the craft of whatever it is that we want to do, we have to look at the origins. We have to study the work and understand what came before us, what we want to do now, and how we can move forward with it. Because the same can apply to architecture school. When we go to study in our design studios, our tutors more often than not tell us, look at the work of architects, designers, that works exist right now in the real world. And that can extend back to the 1800s, to the 19th century, 1800s to the 1900s, to the modern day right now, to the postmodern kind of architecture right now. What are your influences? What inspires you? And how can you kind of take elements that you like and apply it to your own work? Because when we start architecture school, for example, in first year, we're like, you know what, I want to become an architect. I have to have my own unique ideas. But you're a first year student. What are you going to do if you don't already know how to draw floor plan sections, elevations? That's not really unique. And once we do start to understand kind of those techniques and those ideas of representation, then, and I think that only then, through a kind of an accumulation of all of those, the studying of the pieces of art and work from previous years, can we then begin to use those influences to depict who we are as designers moving forward. Because we have our own style, but it would be a lie to say that we haven't been influenced from anything that's come before us or anything that exists right now. So that's kind of something, kind of a little segue that I wanted to bring into the video of copyist art, and how I know I didn't speak of it much, but kind of not the technique, but the notion of copyist art. We need to learn techniques, we need to learn styles before we begin kind of having our own identities as designers. And being a copyist, being someone who literally studies the work of an artist or an architect that they really like in order to replicate that, but not just replicate it, to emulate it within that style, I think is very important, because we can see things that have worked in the past, and as architects, things that can be structurally built, things that are successful, architects that have kind of a great, not a foundation, but a great history and catalogue and discography of work that is very successful and is very prestigious and renowned globally. Why not? If we see something that works, it would be a mistake not to study that, if you get what I mean. So that's kind of what I want to bring in and kind of say right now. And I think this also applies for architects in practice as well, because we know that practices have kind of a specific style or a specific way that they go about doing projects, and every project has to come back to that same style because that's how the practice is known for, or what they're known for. But I think staying in the same zone, staying in the same pot, that's not, and what shouldn't be, defining a practice or an architect. You are known for the work that you produce. Now necessarily, we can say that we can recognize a Banksy painting or a Banksy piece of art from anywhere, because we know that's his style, that's what he does, or that's what they do. But we don't know who they are. But when it comes to us as upcoming and future designers, we can't neglect and be dismissive of all of that either. So yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. And finally, in this week's video, I really wanted to kind of finalize the video with the topic of insufficient evolution of the built environment. And what I mean by that is more so in the sense that we have lots of conversations about how there's a big distinction between architecture school and practice. And when we go into practice, we kind of or supposedly we realized that all of the stuff that we've been doing in architecture school, all of this expression, all of this exploration into different techniques and different styles and pushing ourselves out there, that we've kind of, metaphorically killed ourselves to do. But then when we go into practice, we see that the projects that are actually happening in real life aren't as extravagant and aren't as exciting and motivating that we once believed that we could produce. And so much has been said and so much has been kind of argued in a way that architecture school doesn't lead you or doesn't provide you or develop you for real life practice. However, I was writing the script for this video and writing some bullet points down for, what I could say about this. And I think, and I believe that it's the opposite. I believe that practices haven't kept up with the evolution and development of architecture schools. Now, that's a big thing to say, and who am I to say that when I haven't got my own practice, I'm not a licensed architect, blah, blah, blah. But I know that architects also believe this. Architects that have been running their own practices for 20, 30 years also believe that the work that's going on right now in practice isn't as developed, isn't as evolved, isn't as exciting as the work that young aspiring architects are expected to produce in architecture school. So, how can we now change that conversation from being architecture school doesn't develop you or train you for real life practice into how can we continue pushing aspiring architects, and once they enter practice, that this kind of, this transition period allows practices to grow and evolve as time is going by. Because, I read somewhere that the practice is 20, 30 years behind where it should be. And that makes complete sense. We would be very, very foolish to say that it's the fault of the architecture students who haven't been trained in a specific way to become CAD monkeys, But that's ridiculous. It's the practices that aren't keeping up with modern day developments and the evolution of the practice. So, yeah, that's my viewpoint, and it's not just mine. I know it's the viewpoint of many others. However, I also know that countering that is the opposite. That architecture school isn't training the students that we need to work in practice, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I want to leave on. And, what can we do about it? We need to continue dabbling into all of the new spaces that we see, whether it's dabbling into the historical, technical side of studying architecture, but also matching real life practice and what's going on with all of the creative and critical thinking and analysis that we do in architecture school. Because working in practice, you're more often than not just working on developing and drawing up some floor plans for whether it's going to be, a high-rise building, a hotel, leisure, a school, things like that. Things that already have a blueprint that architects are manipulating and adapting to fit the need of that specific client, of that specific school, developer, etc., etc. The conversation needs to be switched around. The conversation needs to flip into the value and the true value that architects and designers are bringing to the table, rather than the other way around. Because if we can date this back to, olden times where artists and designers were looked down upon for their work, for their ways of thinking, and everyone was kind of like, who are you to say this? But time has changed now. Architects and designers have a greater say in what's going on because they are the true masters in their craft. And more authority needs to be given in that respect, and more respect needs to be given as well. But we can't decide that. The market likes what the market likes. And it doesn't matter who we are as designers, as architects, what background we come from. If the market doesn't like it, it doesn't like it. But the market and the architecture industry is missing out and knows that it's missing out on these developments and evolutions. So it's kind of a conversation that architects need to have to push themselves more within the hierarchy of the industry, rather than belittling themselves and giving in to these profit-gaining developers. So, yeah, ran over. That's kind of the video that I wanted to make, and I know it feels like it was in two parts: the art of stealing and understanding kind of the artistic and critical side of developing ourselves as young designers, and at the end, the kind of evolution of the industry as a whole, and what this means for us moving forward. But it's very exciting. It's challenging, but it should be challenging, because if it's not challenging, then we're not working towards something that we're passionate or excited about. So, I mean, you can see the smile on my face, but I know there's so many hard things. There's going to be lots of difficulty, lots of challenges coming up, but we can do it. We've done it up to now, and pushing forward, this provides us our own space or, you know, as I like to think about it, kind of our own modern Renaissance period, that we can define ourselves and solidify ourselves in the game. So thank you so much for watching. And with that, yeah, I'd like to leave you with that. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.